So that's so we're just talking about the staggering nature of the forums in terms of we're going to do the initial post. That's the only thing that's due tomorrow and Tuesday. And then for next week, for next Tuesday, you'll have the responses to this forum that we're going to essentially be closing out the initial responses to. And then you'll have posts for the new forum, which I'll be posting later this afternoon. So that way we only have one due date here. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our lesson today. So today I wanted to quickly go over the concept of marginal analysis before we really start into the demand and supply shifts. And so this notion that we're giving something up to get something and that we should only do something when it's worth doing is actually quite an old notion, right? So just a couple of, little quotes here, right? So we have from Marcus Aurelius back in AD 120. It says, "Always take the shortcut, and that is the rational one. Therefore, say and do everything according to the soundest reason." Right? So way back when, they're saying, take the shortcut, only do it if it's really, if it's rational, right? But what do they mean by if it's rational? So that's what we're going to be exploring in class today. And then it says, well, whatever, there's another quote here from Philip Dormer Stanhope, the Earl of Chesterfield, pretty sweet title, back in, 18th century, right, 1700s. And he said, whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well, right, which I'm sure we've all heard. One variation of, between our parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, right, like, what's the point of doing it if you're not going to do it right? So we're going to talk about how economists depict those kind of common sense, everyday, axioms or whatever, right? Everyday choices. So between these two extremes, we find an economic way of thinking, right? We know that, okay, it's not always worth doing because of the fact that if it's worth doing, you have to do it right. So sometimes, it's just the juice is not worth the squeeze, right? To borrow a quote from a nice movie. But other times, it's going to be, right? And so how do we actually package that in economic language? So a lot of the choices we make, they're all or nothing kind of decisions. You're either going to do the flip it homework tonight or you're not. You're either going to, or by tomorrow night, or you're not. You're either going to submit the problem set in a Word format so that Turnitin can run it through and I can make sure you guys aren't, cheating off each other, or you're not, right? Like it's not necessarily about how much am I going to do of it. It's just, am I going to do it or not? But a lot of other things we're going to be asking ourselves, well, we'll up to a certain point, we're gonna take this action, right? So I know a lot of you guys are, maybe just close out of high school, right? So, and if you aren't, then you still remember senioritis and that kind of things, right? And so, what is senioritis ultimately? Procrastination, yes. Well, being lazy in a way, but why can all of a sudden you're allowed to have this change in your perception?
You've had the experience.
You had the experience, but what is the experience? What does that earn you? That gets you that change in the perception, right? So there's something about the way that high school and college admission processes are set up, in terms of you get to a certain point and you get your admissions letter, and nobody really checks up on you unless you fail out, right? And so that's why people just check out, right? Because the marginal benefit, so we'll get into our keywords today. So marginal benefit. And then we have blue marginal cost. before I get into the examples, we should define what these things are, right? So our marginal, what does this word marginal mean? Comes from margin, right? On the margin. We're thinking on the margin. What does that mean? Has anybody heard that phrase before, number one? Or is this just completely new to everybody?
I was going to say
Okay,
like
man.
per event or like per one decision, one step.
Right. Absolutely. So it's incrementally is another word for it, right? And so it's not that we're doing that all or nothing decision, right? About do we do the problem set or not? It's do I just submit the second question of the problem set because that's the only one that I really understand because that's the only one Professor McCarthy went over explicitly. If that's the case, then you should come to office hours or email me, okay? So we can talk about it. But so that would be the marginal decision, right? You would be like going through and you would say, okay, I've done all 6 or 5 of those examples in the second one, right? The examples about the shifts, and you would say, do I want to go ahead and do that next one? Do I want to kind of complete the homework or not, right? Since I am going to give you guys partial credit on it, that is an option here, right? In terms of producing it one step at a time and then making that decision of, okay, should I take that next step? And the way that I always teach this is I think about it as like stairs, in terms of that your whatever the thing is that you're doing, you're going up these stairs, and each stair is a unit of the thing that you're, let's say, consuming. So, quick example, and then we'll get back to senioritis. The Chinese food place in town, right? The Chinese restaurant. Like you go there, the first plate that you get, it's awesome, and you're really hungry, and you haven't had Mongolian beef in a while, right? And so the first plate is great, and then you go back, and so the marginal benefit of that first plate is pretty high, right? In terms of the value that you're getting. Okay, so we're defining this marginal word. And I guess we shouldn't have to define the benefit word, but why not, right? So benefit, we're just talking about the fact that the humans, right, this is a human-centered subject, that the humans are getting some enjoyment from it, right? That's all we're saying. So this marginal benefit is saying by doing one more thing, individual consumers or individual producers are going to be happier. They're going to be better off. So the marginal benefit is just an incremental step in the direction to something that makes you better off. Marginal cost, obviously, opposite. Excellent. So when we go to the Chinese restaurant, we have our first plate of Mongolian beef. There's a very large amount of marginal benefit, right? But what normally happens? Is that second plate of food just as good as the first plate? No. Is the third plate of food as good as the second plate? One guy shaking his head yes. That's awesome. And he's not 1,000,000 pounds, so good for you. But like usually for the rest of us, right? The second, third, fourth, fifth, right? As we eat more, as we get more full, as we get more acclimated to the taste of it, right? We enjoy it less. We get less of this total benefit. So essentially, each extra plate that we get gives us less marginal benefit. We still do get some positive amount of marginal benefit from the food, right? It's not as if, you get to that second plate, and as soon as you eat the first bite, you're like, oh man, my stomach's gonna explode, I'm super full, right? Like, it's a gradual process where at first, so if we were to kind of graph the marginal benefit, we were to graph the number of plates, the typical kind of marginal benefit curve is something that looks like this, where we start out with some positive amount of marginal benefit. The more that we consume, we keep increasing the marginal benefits, and then it just starts decreasing. And it can get to this range down here where it's negative, right? Think about what this would mean if we're looking at the margin. If we're looking at, let's say that this is 11 and 12 plates of Chinese food. Very unhealthy amount of Chinese food in one sitting, right? By going from that 11 to the 12th plate, when you had that 11th plate, that was a marginal benefit that was negative, right? That was giving you -2 extra of this what we call utils, all right? And just don't worry about it. Economists had to make up a unit, so they figured, well, we're dealing with utility here, right? This is talking about, the amount of benefit of people's lives, and so we just call them utils. All right, but essentially they're just like happiness points. You can think about it like that. And so when we go from 11 to 12, we're actually like decreasing our happiness by -4, right? So there is a point where when we're adding more plates of food, the marginal benefit is actually going to be negative. All right, we normally don't see it though. That's an extreme, but it does exist. And this whole kind of this graph here is called diminishing marginal benefits. And it's pretty much a constant. This is the rule, not the exception, right? In terms of how we've observed human consumption behavior. In any given period of time, the more you buy of one given thing, the less that given thing is going to actually make you happy. Okay? For whatever reason, humans like diversity in food, in clothing, right? We all don't have just the same, we're not Doug. We don't have a closet full of the same exact outfits, right? I guess that reference is lost on a lot of you guys, but
No, I got it.
awesome. Perfect. So let's go back to our senioritis example, right? So what is happening at the end of the senior year so now that we have these defined, what's happening at the end of the senior year when you're already accepted into college, and again, there's no one that's really going to check up on you, and as long as you just like keep your grades okay enough that your parents and people, and you don't get, fail out, right? You're good. So what is going on if we framed it in our marginal benefit and marginal cost language? What would we say is going on in terms of skipping school, right? In terms of if you have the senioritis and you're skipping school, why are you skipping school? So there's still a benefit, right? A little bit. Maybe you're socializing, maybe you're learning something. It's pain in the butt, right? I'll give you that. But there's still a benefit of going to school. But actually, so we're talking about that's very good, because we're talking about the marginal benefit and marginal cost of skipping, not of going to school. So we have to be very specific here, right? So of skipping. So what's going on with the marginal benefit and marginal cost of skipping school when you're in this kind of phase in your life, okay, of skipping school? So you're right that the marginal benefit of the next best option comes into play, but we'll try and focus on this. So what's the marginal benefit of skipping school? You have more hours to work, but also you can, joyride and have fun, right? Like you can, so it's almost always positive. You're either going to make money, you're going to sleep, you're going to hang out with friends, you can play video games, right? Like, so the marginal benefit for not going to school is, sizable. And then what happens to the marginal cost when you're accepted to college and you enter into this kind of phase? And why? Okay, so we would call that inertia, and so you're saying that they might just keep going to school?
They might go to school, but they might not want to attend, depending on how determined they are to be there.
That's true. But what happens to the marginal cost between the beginning of the senior year and the end of the senior year? I heard somebody say it over here. It drops, it diminishes, it plummets, right? All of a sudden, the marginal cost of skipping was, oh man, my recommendations that my teachers are going to write me they're not going to do them anymore. Or when they ask for my transcripts from my school, right? They're going to see how many absences I have because that's on the transcripts, right? I think. So all of a sudden, the kind of structure that you're making these decisions in changes, right? And the marginal cost of skipping school plummets. And so that's why, for the most part, anybody that skipped school in high school has skipped it kind of in that period, right? In that senioritis period. That's why, historically there's something called a senior skip day, right? Towards the end of the year. And it's, maybe it's not the best thing, but it makes, not the best thing kind of the big picture wise, but it makes sense when we think about it using our economic principles here, right? When we think about the fact that people only do actions. So we think that people only do things when the marginal benefit is greater than or equal to the marginal cost. All right? So now I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to spend the next 3 minutes talking about something that you did this weekend that you can now kind of categorize or cast in this light in terms of, and it can be something as simple as, I got one. I was really hungry on Saturday morning, but my kitchen was a mess, and so I didn't want to cook anything. So the marginal benefit of me, staying home and saving money by cooking at home was not greater than the marginal cost of cleaning up all that crap, so I just went to McDonald's, right? So that's my little story about marginal benefit and marginal cost. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll take the next 3 minutes, turn to your neighbor, and tell a little story about something you did over the weekend where you used what's called incremental analysis or marginal analysis, okay? It's one of the cornerstones of economics. All right, 3 minutes, go. Like, I won a $90 card last time I did that with them. I pulled a $90 card.
Yeah, they can get really expensive. No, Lauren, my friend's went, and she got one of the new oil planes.
No!
There were only 2 of in the entire thing. And people were so mad about it. People were pissed. But I didn't go to that, so I didn't get to see it. But my friends were in, it was a great time, so I just got to hear about it. But instead, I promised my friend Josie that we'll go home and we'll try to do something so she can help me with my business economics. And I ended up helping her more than doing mine, but it was kind of at the cost of doing that, but the benefit was that I got to hang out with her and close. I'm trying to remember what one they said it was. It was one of the new. It was like one of the new artifact transformers.
I want.
Where do you work?
I work with dietaries.
All right, sounds like the murmur has died down a little bit, so why don't we'll just do 3. So, and you can volunteer. I won't just randomly call on you. But let's 3 people just get up and share, and you can either share your own or your partner's. That'll be fun, right? You could just out the other person, which would be great. So, anybody? Volunteers? Volunteers? All right, awesome.
Taylor, I'm totally gonna out you. So
Oh god.
Taylor went and instead of like doing homework or anything else this weekend, she went to work, and the benefit was she got hours so she can get paid. She didn't have time to do homework or anything like that.
That is homework.
Yeah, a little homework, but
Just
not as
didn't
much.
feel as, like, to do it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for letting us share that, Taylor. Next, who wants to go next? I could just sit here and wait. It's fine. Don't make me turn this bus around.
Okay, I go.
All right, thank you.
So, I was hungry and I didn't have a car, so I decided to stay in the dorms, which was a benefit because I saved time and money.
Boom.
And the cost was that the food I ate was not very healthy.
Yeah. I've been there. Lived off Pop-Tarts for a little bit in college. That was not good. Not a good dietary choice. All right, so we have one left. One left. Thank you very much. One left. Who wants to share? How about somebody in the back on their iPad, not paying attention? Yeah, you. He doesn't know what's going on. All right, somebody else in the back. You're looking at me. Yeah, you.
Alright, cool. It's gonna take a little bit to stand up.
That's fine. You don't have to stand up too. You can just sit. You can just project.
Cool. On Saturday, I was hungry, but I also didn't want to get dressed, so I ended up just staying in the dorm.
What was your marginal benefit, marginal cost?
I didn't have to get dressed, so that was
Well, that was a big marginal cost, right? Of like you were hungry and you were like, well, I can't go places naked. Last time I checked, that's illegal. And so that was the marginal cost, right? You know, the effort to get the clothes on. But the marginal benefit would have been you would have got some tasty food instead of vending machine snacks, which you know, a lot of us did. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing. We'll just do a little bit of that, a little bit of kind of pairing together and then sharing with the group. Just to, you know, hear what everybody else is doing and also just get to know your classmates a little bit more, right? Okay, expected lifetime cost is our next bit here. And so right now I'm just putting up some numbers so that we can do some incremental analysis with regards to earning degrees and you know, is it worth it, right? So the expected lifetime costs of high school, we think to be 0, right? Yeah, you can go to public high school. Associate's degree, on average, 200,000. Now, why do you think this is so high? For just an associate's, right? I mean, if that had said for a bachelor's degree, then you know maybe it'd be like, okay, well, I mean, you know, there are some schools that charge a lot of money, right? $40,000, $50,000 a year. People taking 4 to 5 years to get through, right? But why do you? I mean, for an associate's degree for 2 years at community colleges or.
Generally, that's like a trade school or some technical work.
Agree. Well, not always. Not always. So people can get associate's degrees that aren't trade schoolers and stuff like that. And like you'll see people that will transfer into Chadron State with associate's degree from WNCC, right? And then they'll kind of just start as juniors. So it's not necessarily that you just go like that's a different path, right? But that's a very good question. So the reason why, it's because of this lifetime word, right? So they're adjusting for inflation. So they're already accounting for the fact that, we're trying to look at kind of the bigger picture. So we're looking at the lifetime cost. So even though it might not cost you $200,000 actual dollars, when we account for the fact that you had to pay that money earlier in life than when you got a lot of this money, that's part of the reason why this is so large, okay? So it's taking account the increase in the price levels and the interest that you could have made on that money. Yeah?
Where are these numbers from? What source?
That is a great question. So this is from EconEdlink. I can get you exact information. I think these are just. I'm not exactly certain that these are anything more than ballpark. Yeah. So I'll double check and I'll actually email I know the person that made this lesson, so I'll email them and be like, hey, did you just make up those numbers, or where are those from? Because that's a very good question. But they're trying to account for the fact that, you know, you're paying a lot of this money early on in your life. If you didn't pay that money, what could you have done with it instead? You could have invested it either in the market, either in yourself, right? You could have bought a, what's it called? Food truck. You could have started a food truck. Be Shadron's first food truck, right? Instead of going to college. Yes.
There's actually a taco food truck around here.
Thank you. Correction. Excellent. I will be sure to visit it. Great. So, no, you're good. So the point of this, though, is for us to try and use that incremental analysis, that marginal benefit, marginal cost kind of comparison to see whether or not it's worth it, right? So expected lifetime costs for getting the associate's degree is $200,000. So how would we evaluate that decision of should I get an associate's degree or not, given this information? Let's assume this information is accurate. You know, the government, you know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has surveyed all the workers, and they found that this is indeed the differential from just having a bit of college, right? There's definitely a big gap for having the actual degree in hand, right? That's where the gap really jumps. But for now, we'll just say, okay, yeah, it doubles, right? You go from $600,000 a year of lifetime earnings to $120,000 a year, and the lifetime cost is $200,000. So how would we compare? How would we see if it's worth it to us to get our associate's degree? What would we be comparing? What two numbers? Okay, let's think about that. Who in class thinks that that is correct? It's the 12,000 that we're comparing to the 200. Since 12,000 is greater than 200, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that step, right? Again, my metaphor. So we're going to go up that first rung of the steps of education, which is associate's degree. Is that who? Let's wait. Show of hands. So show of hands. Who thinks that it's? Essentially, I'm taking this 1,200 and I'm saying, all right, sweet, since that's greater than that, yep, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. Okay, so a few, but you know, some people are unconvinced. Some people, well, why are you guys unconvinced?
Because you need to subtract your cost from your earnings, your cost from your earnings for each one, and then compare the cost minus the earnings. Like 600 minus 0 versus 12,000 minus 200.
Okay.
6,000, like in total earnings, minus the 1,000 total earnings of the associate.
Excellent. So for those of you that can't hear, what she just said is that she wants to compare. She wants to essentially take this 600,000 and minus the 0, right? And so to have another column, and this is again why I need a bigger whiteboard. Have another column. We'll put it right here, right? And we'll say this is net. Okay, this is the net. And so this would be 600, this would be 1,200, or 1,000, right? $1,000. Now again, but wouldn't that still be doing the same thing that the gentleman in the back said to do? In terms of if it's positive, we should go ahead and we should do that action. We should get the associate's degree if it's positive once we do that. And what that is called, the technical term for that is it's like a cost-benefit analysis, right? We're literally just taking the cost, subtracting from the benefit, and we're saying, well, if the benefits, you know, the total benefits more than the total cost, we're going to do it. Now, this is a bit different. It's not that's CBA, cost-benefit analysis, and that's what this net would be. So CBA, cost-benefit analysis. We're doing something slightly different. Okay, we're going to be doing incremental analysis. So again, since we're looking at what do I get as I go from, I'm at high school, what do I get when I go and get that associate's degree, and I have that associate's degree, and I go back home and I get a job working in an office somewhere, right? What happens? What changes in my life? And by how much?
Theoretically, you should have a better job, so you might have more income, so you might have an availability to nicer things.
Correct. And let's back up to just the more income, right? The more income, how much more income am I going to have? 600,000, right? So that, not the total, that's what we're going to be comparing it, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at, as we go from high school to associates, right? What's the marginal benefit? The marginal benefit of going from high school to the associates is going to be 600,000. The marginal benefit from going from associates to bachelors, 500,000. Excellent. Down to masters, 400. And lastly, to doctorate, 300. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? And look at what we have here. We've got something where, at first, the marginal benefit is very large, and then the marginal benefit is decreasing as we are consuming or enjoying more of it. It's just like the Chinese food restaurant, right? So this behavior of, the more that you kind of consume one thing or invest in one thing, the less that marginal benefit is really widespread throughout economics, okay? So this diminishing marginal returns behavior is what we call this. The fact that the marginal benefit, while still being positive, is decreasing as we become further and further educated it's just one of those laws of, one of those stylized facts, rather. We don't have laws in economics of our world, of capitalist systems, right? Okay, so the rest of the numbers here, I lost my blue marker. Sad. Oh, thank you. Okay, 500,000, 900,000, and 2,400,000. Man, $2 million doctorates. Oh, you know what that is? Okay, so that's why. It's a great question for you guys. See if you can figure it out. Why is the doctorate so much more than the master's degree in terms of costs, right? You don't get that much more in terms of earnings. That's true in economics. It's like a 5% pay increase. Okay, so we're talking about all kinds of doctors. That's great. That's great. If you're a medical providing doctor, then yes. But they would probably, weirdly enough, they would probably like just take that right out of the earnings. You know what I'm saying? So like they would like in the same way that like our taxes are taken like right out of our earnings, and then if you have insurance payments through your employer, they take them right out of your earnings. Like I think that the way that this would be calculated would be earnings, it would be like net earnings, right? It would be earnings minus the insurance payments. We're just talking about the cost of getting the degree, the total lifetime cost of getting the degree. Why do we think it's so large for the doctorate? And again, think about the fact that it's talking about the lifetime costs. So you're essentially like, you're at year 80 something and you're looking back. So we're bringing all the values of all these things that we purchased when we were in our 20s to that point when we're 80, right? So we're inflating them a ton, right? Because prices increase every year, so we're kind of keeping track of that. But the other thing is the fact that you just spend so much damn time getting your doctorate, right? Like it's a 4 to 10 year commitment of your life, and so that's time where you're not working. That's time where you could have been working and earning, your wage with your master's or your bachelor's degree. That's a lot more than usually the wage that you're earning when you're working on your doctorate still, right? So that's why this jumps up so much. It's not necessarily because doctorate programs are more expensive, right, than master's programs. It's the fact that they take longer. And at that point, the opportunity cost of another year in school is the greatest that it's been in your life. Because you're at the point where you're able to make more than if you had with a bachelor's and if you had with just a high school degree. Okay, but I digress. How would we go ahead and figure out this bachelor's degree? How would we go? What numbers would we be comparing for the bachelor's degree in terms of should we go ahead and should we get the bachelor's? We decided yes, we should get the associate's degree. That should happen, right? The marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, so I'll take that stair step. But what about the bachelor's degree? What are we comparing? What two numbers?
The 500K from the jump to an associate's to a bachelor's and the expected lifetime costs.
Okay, so this 500K and this 500K? And so would we say that since they are greater than or equal to each other, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get that bachelor's? Is that what the class thinks? Is that what you guys think?
You have to subtract the 200 from the 500 to get your marginal cost.
Boom. Thank you, sir. Excellent. He knows when I'm leading you on now. Yes. So I need the marginal cost, all right? Not just the marginal benefit, right? So this would be, If we were to compare this to this, that would be comparing the marginal benefit being greater than or equal to the total cost, right? Like, no, that should never happen. Like, that's apples and oranges, no bueno, right? So we need to, again, so instead of that net column over there, we're going to have a marginal cost column where all we're going to do is we're just going to subtract the previous value from that total cost value, right? So marginal cost, so the first, with all of these, the first one is just like dash, right? Because there is no marginal cost to nothing. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Take that back. Take that back. The marginal benefit is just 600K, and the marginal cost is 0. It's the same thing here. We'll get to points where there's no marginal cost, marginal benefit at the beginning, but for right now, there is. It's much, much simpler. Okay, so the marginal cost of the associate's degree is just going to be the 200, that's the total cost of the associate's degree minus the total cost of high school. So 200 minus 0 gives us 200. Then we're going to do the the marginal cost of the bachelor's degree is equal to the total cost of the bachelor's degree minus the total cost of the associate's degree. So it's going to be 500 minus 200K, right? So this is going to be 300K. This one is going to be 400K. And this last one, 15. Yeah. Okay, so now, between the purple and the orange, we have the information to do what's called incremental analysis, right? And so we're going to say, all right, I'm at, I haven't even finished high school yet. Should I finish high school? Well, the cost is 0, and I'll earn, 600,000 more than if I didn't have a high school degree. That's probably not true, because it's probably only like 200 or something. But anyways, so you say, yes, I'm going to go to high school, and I'm going to get my high school degree. Excellent. So then you say associate's degree. Well, by going to the associate's degree, I get $600,000 more dollars, and it only costs me $200,000 in total over my whole life. And so I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the associate's degree. Now, what about the bachelor's degree? We have the extra $500,000 in earnings from getting the bachelor's degree, and we now know that it's an extra $300,000 of lifetime of what you're paying for the bachelor's degree, right? So are we going to get the bachelor's degree? Yes, because 500 is greater than 300, so we're going to go ahead and get the bachelor's degree. Awesome. What about the master's degree? So we've got an extra $400,000, and the marginal cost is also $400,000. And so what was that rule? Did you guys write it down in your notes? What was the rule that I had earlier that I put in a box? Greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to. So we will absolutely get that master's degree, right? Now, are we gonna go that, that final level? Good call. Only if you have to, right? I mean, so the benefit of the doctorate is $300,000, and the cost is 5 times it. Those extra years and the foregone, pay and what you could be doing with that money instead of paying tuition and fees and for books and all sorts of stuff like that, right? So when we're looking at this from a pure economic standpoint, right? From a pure I just want to maximize the amount of stuff that I'm getting given how much crap I have to buy or how much stuff I have to buy, we're going to stop at that master's degree. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. This is key. This is really key to economics in general. This notion of incremental analysis. This notion of we can't just make decisions on the cost benefit of the totals. That'll mislead us sometimes. Because oftentimes we're not at a situation where we're not purchasing anything or we have zero education or, you know what I mean? Oftentimes we're in situations already where I find myself here and I'm asking myself, do I want to do one more of these things or not? Okay, and so that's going to be the way that we're able to maximize the utility, the happiness, the revenue throughout time. For people, for firms, for everybody. Questions on incremental analysis? Awesome. I'll erase that afterwards. Let's go ahead and do our Kahoot. This live streaming thing is probably never going to work. It just freezes. Whatever. Something I tried. Oh, it would help if things were on. Maybe. I hear things. The last 2 days. Stop this. It's the best.
I cannot take this. I love Star Wars. I cannot take this.
Alright. We should probably, finish class.
Okay.
All right, people must make economic decisions every day of their lives, every darn day. 'Cause why? All right. So those are how they're making the decisions. Those other ones, right? Like they're using opportunity costs. Like sometimes they use cost benefit analysis. Marginal analysis would have been a nice other red herring here, tricky answer, right? But it's actually scarcity. That's the underlying thing that's really screwing us all, right? It's the fact that we don't have enough stuff. So since we don't have enough stuff, we have to make economic decisions. If we had more stuff, then we wouldn't have these economic decisions every day, right? So it's the fact that there's scarce resources, there's limited stuff that people want, used for all sorts of things, right? All right, Dominica, excellent. An incentive is something that makes a particular product what? Correct. More desirable. More desirable. I give you attendance and have Kahoot quizzes to make classes more desirable. Those are my incentives for you to come. Dominica, still in the lead. Nice. Mason coming in second. When you give up, what you give up when you make an economic decision is called what? Opportunity cost. An opportunity cost. That's the best answer, all right? I mean, there are trade-offs in economics, but what you give up is not a trade-off. The trade-off is the pure notion of having to give something up for something else. You should know this as a Magic player. All right, in order for something to be scarce, it also has to be exotic. It's got to be desirable, right? So pollution, not scarce, right? Like nobody wants pollution. Nobody wants to breathe crap into their lungs that is going to kill them eventually or not so eventually, right? So it has to be desirable to be scarce. You never hear people say, oh, there's scarcity of pollution, right? They're like, oh man, we've cleared the pollution out. It's wonderful, right? Like we fixed the pollution problem. All right, scarcity is a problem of unlimited wants, but limited. All right, correct. So it's the combination of the two of them, right? Unlimited wants, limited resources. Keep that in mind, very important. What is the golden rule of microeconomics?
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? There has been an emergency reported. Please proceed to the nearest exit in a calm and orderly manner.
Let's do it. No, let's go. I'll give you guys credit. We do it right now. Do it right now. As you're walking. As you're walking. You got it.
It's always limited. Oh no, it's always limited. Oh, it's Friday.
last 2 hours being on the, well, we gotta go. I cannot accept these messages from Kevin. I cannot start out engineering and Friday and back to Friday, back to Friday. And then took like 40 minutes to come home. I have beaten all of you. For that one paper. Honestly, I was meaning to talk to you. We might want to just use my phone paper together and do that dollar thing about it. Yeah. And then get back on it. I'll do stuff on OneDrive and work on it because I don't have too much on my phone paper. That'll keep me paged and at this point they definitely don't say that. Yeah. Because it's not even my job market paper. My job market paper is the second one. And so I think they would find it. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, I think that's the mistake. Know about your fancy and do it now. Oh, yeah. Because you guys want to get rid of the process. I can use that to my advantage. My kid likes this and a lot more. Okay. No, I just do this in the interviews. I told them last week and I got a quality audit for Oh, I know. I'm so mad. I was like, yeah, we did it already. I know. But yeah, for good or bad, I know everything. Yeah. So, that's the only thing about fire. It's, good. Yeah. I got on mine, dude. I don't know. I was like 8-10 minutes and I'm exhausted. It's completely exhausted. Oh, it takes a while. Yeah, it took me about a month and a half to get up to that level. Yeah. And I've been slowly adding water. I just do it as long as I can. It's so funny because it's like, I'm like 4 minutes. I'm like, yeah. It's 20 minutes and 6 minutes. I'm like, yeah, do it for like 15 minutes. And then 8 minutes, I'm like, please just stop. Like, please. And I'm like literally just like going faster. For whatever reason. I think just getting frustrated. And then like I just stop at 10 minutes ago. And then go on the bike at that time. And just like, I want to get up there because I do like it. It is really therapeutic. I was listening to Pocket Bowl. It was nice too. I used to work out in the past. Oh, I'm doing the 24-hour jump. Oh, are you? I haven't been in there. Oh, yeah. I just keep doing it. Yeah, it's really cool. Because oftentimes it's like your own private gym. Yeah. That you want to do. Yeah. I knew it opened a couple yeah. But yeah, I never had a, I heard it was real busy at the time, so maybe it's this guy's down, and he gives discounts, so it's back in the 26 months. That's right. Yeah. It's good. It was right, I live it's right up. You know, like the excuses of like it's too far, or it's too cold, like that I used to make like on the pack. They just don't hold a lot of the hours start and fun. Maybe I'm doing a lot. You sure. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, I know. You can't be glad handling this. I know. So is this over? Is it still over? I guess I didn't know it was. I think it was fire. Right at the end of my speech, I just got a question about inauguration day. I really wanted to know how many people didn't actually know when inauguration day was. Because I know, I mean, most people probably know it's January 20th, but they know stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I just thinking that, yeah, it's like that. Yeah, I don't used to do that, but you know, the food or something like that.
Who is this guy?
And, you know, it's just like, I used to use all that stuff, you know.
Well, so it's basic. Oh, we were unfortunately thinking about this. Your history really stuck right up there. So like, sometimes I really think that, you know, it's really the topic, but that's just a totally understand something rational, like, you know, what I mean? Like, not necessarily topic, but like, if something comes up, and we're gonna get these stop those stuff. Time not to, everyone is so presenting this thing. Yeah, man. Yeah, you did.